I'm not exactly sure what we're doing here today, but enough people have brought this up that we deemed it necessary to cover it here. Could Taylor Swift, American singer-songwriter, winner of over 602 official awards and most popular artist in the world, become the President of the United States? If Taylor Swift woke up tomorrow morning and decided that she wanted to take the oath of office on January 20th, 2025, what would be her best course of action? What would she run as? And what would a President Swift campaign and administration look like? This is the Political Stalker. Let's get started. The first question I posed to my wife when she brought up this Billboard.com article to me was, well, how old is Taylor Swift? According to the Constitution, in order to be president, you must be born in the United States and be at least 35 years old. At the time of recording this, she is 33 years old and will turn 34 on December 13th of this year, 2023. This means that she would deliver her victory speech at the age of 34, but would take the oath of office at the age of 35 years, 1 month, and 7 days, making her the youngest president in U.S. history by over 7 years to the next youngest president, Theodore Roosevelt. So could she actually do it? I mean, I don't want to spoil anything, but I will say we were shocked by what we found when researching this episode. We don't exactly need to question her influence, as even the NFL, with 184 million fans and worth over $142 billion, have completely embraced Taylor Swift as the face of their social media just because she started dating one of their players. With her Eras tour, she has generated more than $5 billion in consumer spending, meaning, according to Dan Fleetwood, if Taylor Swift were an economy, she'd be bigger than 50 countries. There's no doubt that she has the influence, but in order to figure out if Taylor could win a presidential election, we first have to understand how presidential elections work. In short, all of the political parties have to first pick their candidate. That's right, there are more than the two main ones, though they've been the only ones to hold the office since 1853. The Republican and Democrat parties choose their nominees with a primary election. Once they've made their choice on Election Day, the Tuesday that falls between November 2nd and the 8th, all citizens of the US over 18 get to vote on their choice. But this vote, or the popular vote, isn't what ultimately decides who the president is. The popular vote of each state is tallied, and the winner in each is awarded with a certain number of delegates based on the size of the state. Whichever nominee gets the majority of the votes, or 270 votes, wins the election. This is called the Electoral College. Let us know actually if you'd like a full video covering elections and the Electoral College, because there is a lot to know about it and a lot of opinions about it. But the next big question is, what party will she run under? Well, Taylor Swift has been very quiet about her political affiliations, but she has recently shared her support for a handful of Tennessee Democrat candidates. She has also shared her passion for LGBTQ and women's rights, saying that she supports politicians who prioritize them, including Joe Biden in 2020. So we know that she likely sides with Democrats for at least social issues, though it is possible that Taylor Swift could decide that she has a better chance running as a Republican in order to not deal with running against an incumbent president in the primaries. But because we don't know for sure, we'll look at both possibilities and see what her campaign would look like and what she would have ahead of her. Now, if you are a big Taylor Swift fan, but not all that interested in seeing more informational videos about politics, then subscribing to this channel may not be for you. Finish this video, give it a like, comment your thoughts, and then continue on with your day. But like Taylor herself has encouraged, if you are interested in learning more about political topics and people, and would like to do that in an entry-level and unbiased way that doesn't leave you feeling frustrated or overwhelmed, then subscribing might just be the thing for you. The button is right down there, it's free, and you're always free to unsubscribe later. Okay, let's get started. There are currently 333 million adults in the United States, and according to a Morning Consult survey posted on September 19, 2023, 53% of adults in the US consider themselves fans of Taylor Swift, while 16% consider themselves avid fans. This makes over 176 million fans who are old enough to vote, and 53 million avid fans old enough to vote. For the sake of this hypothetical, we're going to assume that all avid fans are guaranteed votes for Taylor, and we'll keep the casual fans undecided. Of these avid fans, 55% are Democrats, 23% are Republicans, and 23% are independent. Let's start with the more likely option that Taylor Swift runs as a Democrat. At this point, there are 3 main contenders in the Democratic primaries, but we'll mostly focus on the primary race between Biden and Swift. We actually made a whole video about the Democrats' plan for 2024 that we'll link at the end of this video. In the last major Democratic primary election in 2020, about 37 million people voted, with Biden winning 19 million of them. We'll say that all independent, avid Taylor Swift fans would register as Democrat in order to give her the best chance at winning. So this election will have an additional 25 million voters. So, does Taylor Swift have the votes to beat Joe Biden? Absolutely she does. With Taylor's 29 million Democrats and 12 million independent voters, she's guaranteed to receive at least 41.5 million votes, which only leaves 20.5 million votes contested. Just in guaranteed votes alone, she's already secured 2/3 of the Democrat votes. We could go a bit further into this, and we actually did while researching, looking at maps, delegates, Biden's base, and critics in the party, but let's just say, for the purpose of this video, Taylor Swift could easily become the 2024 Democratic presidential nominee if she wanted to be. But maybe Taylor Swift doesn't actually consider herself a Democrat. There are many who would consider themselves social Democrats but fiscal Republicans, agreeing with most Republican values while still being pro-choice, pro-LGBTQ, anti-gun, etc. Since we don't know for sure, we'll present the possibility of her running as a Republican as well, just to see how that would turn out. The Republican primaries, which we also have another video explaining that, which we'll also link at the end of the video if you want to check that out, is a bit more complicated, though we'll only factor in candidates currently polling in over 7%. In the 2016 Republican primary election, about 31 million Republicans participated, with Trump winning about 14 million votes. Once again, factoring in Taylor Swift's independent voter fan base all registering as Republicans this time, this election would have about 9.7 million additional voters than in 2016. So, what's the verdict? Taylor would be guaranteed to get 24.5 million votes, which only leaves 15.5 million uncontested between Trump, DeSantis, and Nikki Haley. Again, there are a few additional steps that we could take, which would honestly just further cement Taylor Swift as the victor. But we'll stop right here and just say she would be the Republican presidential nominee of 2024 if she chose to be. So now we'll head into the general election. We'll pit her up against both Biden and Trump in 2 different scenarios. But the first thing we have to mention is that 159,633,396 people voted in the 2020 election, meaning that Taylor's going to need to rely on a lot more than her 53 million avid fans to win this one. We'll first calculate the popular vote. Then we'll move on to estimating the Electoral College. So let's start with her as the Democratic nominee. Taylor Swift takes on Donald Trump after being the first person to ever beat an incumbent president in the primaries. She has a lot of momentum and traction, but Trump is no slouch on the public stage either. The biggest hurdle she'll have to cross are her policies and stances on many divisive issues. Approximately 25 million avid fans of Taylor Swift voted in the last election, meaning that this one would have at least 27 million more. We'll say that the general election of 2024 will have 188 million voters, the biggest in US history. 28% of Republican voters, or 13 million people, have stated that they are loyal to Donald Trump no matter what and would be voting for him here. An additional 60% of Republicans would likely not be voting for a Democratic candidate no matter who it is, and also have a generally favorable opinion of Donald Trump, so we'll give him an additional 31 million votes, totaling 44,146,297, or 23.5% to start. Not a bad amount of guaranteed votes, but it doesn't even come close to Taylor Swift, as she comes out with her base of 53 million avid fans, stealing about 12 million Republican voters, as well as 91% of the Democrat voters who have an unfavorable opinion of Donald Trump. This brings her up to 109,660,315 total votes, or 58%. This would leave the remaining 34 million votes still up in the air, meaning if Trump somehow won every single one, he'd still only end up with 42%. But let's go ahead and look at the Electoral College, since that's actually the decider. As of now, here's where each state is leaning for the upcoming election. Let's also bring in this map that geotags Twitter data, letting us see the highest concentration of Taylor Swift fans, which will help us determine if any states would be likely to flip. The only swing state that currently sits in the middle is Pennsylvania, and due to the high number of fans there, we'll give that one to Taylor. We'll also give Tennessee to Taylor since that's where she lives, and because of this map, we can also confidently give her Minnesota, Missouri, Ohio, Kentucky, and Mississippi. Again, in order to win the presidential election, you must secure 270 electoral votes, and with that, Taylor Swift has won. But how would she fare against Joe Biden? She has kept the country from a presidential rematch and is riding high, but the biggest argument against her now is her inexperience. Out of the 188 million voters, Biden has a strong base of 34% of Democrats and an additional 43 million Democrat voters with a generally favorable opinion of him. This all leads to Joe Biden starting with a vote total of 64 million votes, or 34.2%, more than Taylor's 53 million. And with her socially liberal opinions, could she get enough votes from Republicans? Well, as of now, 93% of Republicans have such an unfavorable opinion of Joe Biden that we believe they would vote against him, even if they don't 100% agree with everything their own candidate believes. This, on top of her 53 million voter base, totals 97 million votes, or 51.6%. Now that is definitely the majority, but that's not the final decision. Plenty of nominees have won the presidency without winning a majority of the votes, so let's look back at the Electoral College. We'll give Pennsylvania to Taylor again, this time in red, but Biden would get Georgia and likely Nevada and Arizona. But Taylor would likely flip Minnesota and Illinois, which would officially put her at 283 votes, winning the election. No matter how you slice it, Taylor Swift has won. And while it might feel like we're jumping to conclusions here, remember that these votes are practically guaranteed. In all likelihood, Taylor is getting way more votes than this. And if just the confirmed votes are already enough to put her in the White House, imagine how an election would actually turn out. Taylor Swift is sworn in a little over a month after her 35th birthday as the 47th president of the United States and the first female president. Her policies and stances on many issues are up for speculation, and we've done enough speculating today. But what would the presidency mean for her career and for her music? Well, surprisingly, there isn't actually anything specifically that would keep her from continuing her work. If she has the time and energy after prioritizing her presidential duties, she could continue to write and release music. That being said, this would all be new territory for the Constitution, and many complications would likely arise. The president can't use their position to promote profit for themselves or their business, and it would be very difficult to make that distinction. So, President Swift would likely put her music career on hold for the whole of her term or terms. So, at this point, what's stopping Taylor Swift from becoming the president in 2025? Absolutely nothing, except maybe herself. She's currently one of the richest and most famous people on the planet and has a sphere of influence that has no equal. It's so massive that she could use that influence to even become the highest official in the entire world. But for Taylor Swift, that would be a step down. By becoming president of the United States, Taylor Swift would have less power than she does now. So should we be holding our breath for a President Swift? No. Absolutely not. But it isn't completely unheard of for people in the entertainment industry to branch into politics later in life. You know, after they've felt like they're ready to move on and they've done everything they want to do. So you never really know. This has been The Political Stalker. Thank you so much for watching. If this is your first time here, thank you for tuning in, and be sure to subscribe if you'd like to be kept up to date with all things political. Politics can often be frustrating and overwhelming, and our goal here is to teach it in an easy and unbiased way. So go ahead and check out one of these other videos, and we'd love to see you next time.